Hello mi gente and welcome to Spanglish. Now, a lot of things happened this week. There's a Senate failing to pass any comprehensive immigration bill. Not to mention that Trump's bill, the Grassley bill, is actually the worst one, got the least amount of votes, and of course the most draconian and cruel one. But even the bipartisan one that Trump wants long ago, the one proposed by Schumer and by Lindsey Graham, well, that only got 54 votes because the president said he would veto it on Twitter. And that brought a lot of defections and it didn't pass. So basically, as of now, the Dreamers are screwed. I don't know what's going to happen. It's possible there's another compromise down the road, but it's not looking like it's going to happen. And again, this is something that Trump himself created when he rescinded DACA with no real reason. And then he knew very well that Congress was not going to come up with a fix. And he has killed twice already any sort of deal that could have saved the Dreamers. But he's such a coward that he doesn't want to say it out loud. He wants Dreamers deported. He doesn't care about them. But he's just a coward, like I said. And he just wants to blame the Democrats when everybody knows that he's the one that's killed both bipartisan deals. And he's the one in the first place that killed the whole DACA program. So it's all on him. And then Mueller came out. He indicted 13 Russian nationals. And of course, Trump and Fox News machine are saying, well, this shows you that the Russians were trying to undermine us, blah, blah, blah. If you read the actual indictment, it says that, yeah, the Russians started out in 2014, which, by the way, Trump had already hinted at some possible ideas of running. So, yeah, we'll get to that in another podcast episode. Anyways, but the indictment itself says that once the elections or once the campaign started in 2016, the Russians turned their focus to help Donald Trump. That's in the indictment. Sean Hannity's not going to read that part, but it's in there. But if you read it for yourself, you'll see that the Russians were undermining Hillary and helping Trump. But all that's not even what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what is on everybody's mind. Parkland. No one was surprised or shocked that there was another school shooting. And that's the sad state of affairs of this country, that kids have to go to school and learn and practice active shooter drills. Back in the 50s, kids had to learn how to duck and cover because of what a foreign country would do to us. But nowadays, kids have to learn active shooter drills for what our country won't do for us. We have a problem. We have a gun problem in this country. The fact that an 18-year-old could buy an AR-15, it's insane. Those types of weapons should not be sold to the public. The AR-15 was designed for the Vietnam War. It was never chosen, but that was its purpose. It's a weapon of war. Sure, it's semi-automatic, but still, it's a very deadly weapon. And with the use of a bump stock, like the Vegas shooter did, it becomes fully automatic. And guess what? Congress did not pass a law banning bump stocks after 58 people were killed in Las Vegas and 851 were injured. That's insane. They couldn't even pass a legislation that doesn't even ban guns, but an accessory that makes guns fully automatic. This Congress is dysfunctional. It just pisses me off that people think their right to bear arms is more important than the right of children to live. It's not like we're saying, hey, let's get rid of all guns. We're saying, how about we don't sell these kinds of weapons? Assault rifles, weapons that can kill people in a matter of seconds. One good thing, if it can be said that way, that came out of this tragedy is that kids from this school have had it. The survivors are speaking now. There's a march next month on the 24th, I believe, on DC and all over the country. And the kids are on social media. They're organizing. They're granting interviews. These kids have more guts than the entire U.S. Congress, or at least the GOP side of the Congress. I don't want to put little Dems in there, because a lot of Democrats are in favor of gun reform, but these kids have more guts and courage than the entire GOP, hands down. They went to horrible trauma, and you got people like Marco Rubio, Paul Ryan saying, let's not have a knee-jerk reaction. It's not time to talk about guns. They can say, no, now is the time. They're saying Parkland is the last school shooting if we can help it. These kids have had enough. They've seen their peers and they've seen others in the generation being gunned down. We have a problem. and it's time to fix it. The time is now. Our coward of a president tweeted, so many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled from school for bad and erratic behavior. Neighbors and classmates knew he was a big problem. Must always report such instances to authorities again and again. Well, idiot, they did. This is what happens when you tweet without actually waiting for information to come out. This is what happens when you tweet after watching Fox News and not actually getting the intel as you should for being a president. It's just, again, blaming the victims, and when in fact the kids did and multiple people did, and the FBI actually missed the boat on this one. But the kids, don't blame the freaking kids. How about you talk about guns? He hasn't mentioned guns once in the tweet or in the speech he gave about the shooting. He didn't mention guns once, which is a real problem. You want to talk about solutions? Just talk about that. I mean, I can talk here all day, but the kids themselves are the ones that actually are speaking out. I'm sure by now you've heard Emma Gonzalez's speech, but let's just listen to this last part because it's just so powerful and it speaks directly to our president.
Would your first thought be, how is this going to reflect on my campaign? Which should I choose? Or would you choose us? And if you answered us, will you act like it for once? You know what would be a good way to act like it? I have an example of how not to act like it. In February of 2017, 1 year ago, President Trump repealed an Obama-era regulation that would have made it easier to block the sale of firearms to people with certain mental illnesses. That I had with the shooter before the shooting and the information that I currently know about him, I don't really know if he was mentally ill, but I wrote this before I heard what Delaney said. Delaney said that he was diagnosed. I don't need a psychologist, and I don't need to be a psychologist to know that repealing that regulation was a really dumb idea. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa was the sole sponsor on this bill that stops the FBI from performing background checks on people adjudicated to be mentally ill, and now he's stating for the record, well, it's a shame that the FBI isn't doing background checks on these mentally ill people. Well, duh! You took that opportunity away last year! The people in the government who were voted into power are lying to us. And us kids seem to be the only ones who notice and are prepared to call BS. Companies trying to make caricatures of the teenagers nowadays, saying that all we are is self-involved and trend-obsessed, and they hush us into submissions when our message doesn't reach the ears of the nation. We are prepared to call BS. Politicians who sit in their gilded House and Senate seats funded by the NRA telling us nothing could have ever been done to prevent this. We call BS. They say that tougher gun laws do not decrease gun violence. We call BS. They say a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun. We call BS. They say guns are just tools like knives and are as dangerous as cars. We call BS. No, they say that no laws could have been able to prevent the hundreds of senseless tragedies that have occurred. We call BS. That us kids don't know what we're talking about, that we're too young to understand how the government works. We call BS. If you agree, register to vote. Contact your local congresspeople. Give them a piece of your mind.
Now, our fearless leader, our coward president, actually, his next tweet, he says, very sad that the FBI missed all the many signals sent out by the Florida school shooter. This is not acceptable. They're spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. There's no collusion. Get back to the basics and make us all proud. Can you believe that? Well, of course you can't believe that. I mean, this guy's a coward and just has no care for anybody else except himself. He's using the school shooting to make it about himself, to say, hey, you guys been focused on the collusion thing. Well, there's no collusion, by the way, and you missed the school shooting. Do they think only 5 people work in the FBI? They have thousands of agents and divisions that work in several things. The guys who are working on the collusion had nothing to do with the guys who are working, I don't know, in kidnappings or murders, there's divisions. And he knows that. Of course he knows that. The fact that he's using a tragedy to exploit his situation is disgusting. He should not be in office. He should not be allowed to run for school council. This man is unfit, unpresidential, and a disgrace to this entire nation, to the history of the presidency, which is why I cannot wait until Mueller hopefully indicts him soon. He's so desperate lately that it shows him that Mueller is closing in. I mean, the fact that Congress voted 517-5 to impose new sanctions on Russia, and he didn't do it, it tells me that the Russians have something on him. I don't know what it is, but we're going to find out. We're going to find out for sure. As I mentioned, the kids that survived the school shooting give me hope that there will be change. For too long, our leaders have sent thoughts and prayer while taking money from the NRA. No more. People say, well, thoughts and prayers work. I believe they do, but not when it comes from politicians, because those are empty words. Marco Rubio sent his thoughts and prayers, and he received $3 million from the NRA last year. He's not the only one. Many of the GOP leaders who send their thoughts and prayers are receiving money from the NRA and have blocked any gun measure that comes to Congress because they're in their pockets. So don't tell me you're thinking and praying for these kids when you're not doing anything to stop them from being murdered. You're a liar. Have the guts at least to tell the truth. See, these kids, they're fed up. They're going to Tallahassee on Wednesday. They're going to march in D.C. next month. They're organizing. They're going to vote you guys out. It's time. Either get with the program, pass gun reform laws, stop taking money from the NRA, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get to keep your office. If not, you're going down. A lot of these kids are 18 or will be 18 soon, and the rest of us, we're mobilizing. We're making this one of our main issues, if not the main issue. It's time. Enough is enough. We're tired. We're fed up of our kids dying. A kid should not have to go to school thinking, where can I hide if a shooter comes in? What's the closest exit? How can I jump out of this window? That's not what a kid should be worrying about. And yet it is. Because our leaders, once again, have failed us. But it's time. The time is now. The time is now. If you don't know what to do, you can go to everytown.org. You can visit Moms Demand Action on Facebook. You can get involved locally. You can do many things to make sure that we elect leaders that respect human lives above their quote-unquote right to own an assault rifle. The time is now. We're fed up. We're not having it anymore. We're organizing, and we will take you down. Thanks for listening. Next week we'll cover different topics, but this was on my mind, and it had to be said. And I think it's important for all of us to organize and mobilize. And if you're a high school student, you're listening to this, and you're about to turn 18, get registered to vote, and get your friends registered to vote. Let's vote these clowns out of office. Together, we can do it. Together, we're stronger. Until next time.